Welcome to Velocity, the Vista Chamber podcast. I'm your host, Vista Chamber CEO Rachel Beld, and it's my privilege to interview the movers, shakers, and change makers impacting our amazing Vista community and beyond. Can you feel the energy? Today, I'm joined by Eric Chagala, Doctor of Educational Leadership, who's the founding principal of Vista Innovation Design Academy, or VIDA. He's also the Chief Development Officer for the 501c3 Unlocked Inc. Eric believes that all kids need a place to matter, that our actions say what we believe about children, and that schools have souls and those souls need to be nurtured. Eric's belief in design thinking for education is deeply rooted in his dissertation that focused on the critical resiliency of high-achieving Latinx youth. This research solidified the knowledge and not just the belief that schools have the power to either defeat or perpetuate the status quo of a neighborhood. Eric has spoken across North America in both workshops and keynotes about personalized learning, design thinking, and to talk about what it takes to build a true school culture that will be ripe for innovation. And lucky for us, he's here to talk about all of this and more. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
I should have also said in your bio, and you're my child's principal.
Yes.
And just this morning, she was interviewing you for something for school.
And she told me that it was okay if I was late to your interview. So we know who's in charge at home.
Well, you know, what can you do? What can you do? She's 14. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So,
Got it.
Okay. So before we dig into all the great work you're doing at VIDA, all of the work with Vista Unified, I want to learn a little bit more about you. So tell me about growing up. Where did you go to school? What was school like for you growing up?
Got it. Great question. So I love North County, born and raised in Escondido. I graduated from Orange Glen High School. Prior to that, like what was school like for me? I got shuttled around. I went to 5 different elementary schools in Escondido. Finally landed staying at a school for the entire time in middle school at Hidden Valley. And then went up to Orange Glen. I love school. There's hard parts. Growing up isn't easy. But high school was a magical time of my life. Best friends in the world, all came from high school. So I love it. Love to be serving in North County, live in San Marcos, 23rd year in Vista Unified. So I'm super excited. I love it.
Yay. Okay. What made you decide to be an educator?
Oh, man. My mom was an elementary school principal. And the day I called her from college and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to get a minor in education and I think I want to be a teacher." And I thought she was going to be so excited and so happy. She's like, "What are you thinking? Why would you do that?" At the time, I was pre-law at UCLA, and she's like, you know, all these things. I'm like, no, like, I think that like this would be a really good route. Like, I love youth. I love like talking about history and political science and world events. And I want to make a difference. I want to like do something that matters. And I actually had a girlfriend at the time. I was working at the UCLA Law Library. And one of the things that has sort of like spurred the education thing was because family, like it's not novel, like family's really important. And I thought we were going to get married, one of those things. And they had just published the starting salaries for kids graduating from UCLA Law School. And this is the late 90s, and the starting salary was like average of 80 grand. I was like, oh, and so I like ran upstairs, I showed her, and she's like, "That's great. When you're earning all that money, who's going to raise your kids?" It's like, ow, like, so
wow.
that like made me like start like rethinking life choices. And then she rethought me as a life choice, unfortunately, in the process. Well, actually, fortunately, because now I have my real wife. But
as opposed to your imaginary wife.
Well, I do live in La La Land quite often. So
okay.
Yeah. As she listens to this, she'll appreciate it. She'll be like, "Yep, that's my guy right there."
Yeah.
So anyway, I think like some of those life choices sort of spurred. And I was a little bummed that my mom was so bummed as a principal that I was going to go into education, but I think she's happy and proud now. And it's I think worked out really well for our family.
Well, it's not an easy job, right? So maybe that was some of her reluctance, was just she knows how hard it can be. And yeah. It's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. And there are definitely harder things that people are doing out in the world too, though.
Yeah. So I know you're a parent.
Yeah.
So how does being a parent influence you as an educator? And then how does being an educator influence you as a parent?
Great question. So I think I was really embarrassing to my wife in elementary school because I wanted to go to everything. I wanted to be in every parent-teacher conference and had all sorts of great questions to ask people, which I think was annoying. But I think the most powerful thing as a parent and educator, and then as an educator parent, is when we opened VIDA, we had the opportunity to design a school we want our own kids to go to. Mm-hmm. And so really, like, there's, I think, so much heart and personalization behind what we've tried to do, because it's not just me, like the whole team, like we've designed a place that we want our own kids to go to, and our own kids have gone and continue to go there. And we live in San Marcos. We pulled our daughters to go to VIDA, and then they went back to San Marcos for high school. And it was the most important 3 years of their life. And to see all the things we talk about with middle school, and then to live it as a dad and see the impacts of school, is just a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah. So at some point, I mean, so you were a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
RBV. Hook 'em horns.
Okay. So you were a teacher at RBV.
And cheer coach.
And cheer coach.
And swim coach.
And swim coach. And so was there a specific situation or a specific time where you realized that you wanted to go into administration or leadership? Was there something specific that happened, or did it just seem like a natural progression?
I don't think I ever saw myself going in that direction, because I saw myself getting into the life of school, to be around kids, to talk about things that I was passionate about and try and inspire similar passions as teachers had in my life to them. There was an assistant principal at RBV, dear friend named Larry White, and he had been the band director for a long time at RBV. So a lot of the listeners, if they're in the band, they're going to remember him. He had Joe Green in his band, like it goes way back. And he became the principal at Vista High.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity to go work for him, and that having the chance to work closely alongside him is what convinced me to leave teaching. Mm-hmm. And I got to spend 8 amazing years at Vista High. Incredible 8 years of my life. Loved RBV, but Vista High really has a sweet, special spot in my heart.
Well, and so you were at Vista High for 8 years.
Yeah.
And then that's when you left to start VIDA, basically.
Yeah. So February of 2013, Washington Middle School needed its 3rd principal that year.
Wow.
It needed its 6th principal in 7 years. And so I'm like, hey, why not? Mm-hmm. Why not try? And I had known as a high school assistant principal, the way I got into the middle school game is we spent a lot of time with mainly moms, because moms show up when something's wrong at school. Dads show up when they're mad. And so spent a lot of time with moms because their lives, their kids' lives at age 16, 17, maybe 15 and a half had really fallen apart. And you can think of all the ways that a teenager's life could fall apart. And I got tired of having the conversation with all these moms over all these years about their kids and the pain and the hurt. Families are just working so hard for their kids, and it's just something's not clicking. And so we started asking the families, like, everyone is wonderful and perfect in kindergarten. Where do you feel like you lost your baby? Mm. And it was always middle school. And they could almost all on their own identify 7th grade. And so after, we were taking notes and we were collecting information about this, trying to figure out what is going on in 7th grade specifically, but middle school. And so when the opportunity at Washington popped open, it's like, I want to figure this out. Mm-hmm. Like that became a really interesting, as a social scientist, like a really interesting venture. And I learned middle school is the most incredibly hard 3 years of their life. There's no more concentrated change that will ever happen to them physically, emotionally, socially, relationally. Connections with their parents change, and they, fall in love for the first time and out of love. And it was 3 days, but it hurt so deep, like, all the things. And so middle school is really where it's at. High school is great, like the fanfare, the pageantry, the more adult type experiences of going off to college or thinking about career. That's all super exciting, but nothing is like middle school ever.
Wow. So, I mean, I think when you ask anybody and you have a friend and you have a chat and you say, like, tell me about a time that was really hard in your life. I think a lot of people say, when I was 13, when I was 13 was really hard. So I think you're right on the money with regard to that. Whether you're a student at 15, 16, 17 whose life falls apart or not, like 7th grade is just hard for everybody. And some people it's harder than others. And that's when you can basically choose a path. And in a few years, you realize you're far down this path. So I think that's great that you're trying to capture students before they have these choices to make and these things happening, and help them, guide them in the right way. So tell me, so VIDA is a magnet school, Vista Innovation Design Academy. What exactly is different about VIDA compared to a school somewhere else?
Yeah. So we're still a public school, still within the school district, all the state rules, all the federal guidelines, all the things.
Curriculum requirements, all that. Right.
Standards, Common Core. What's different is our approach and our philosophy. And so when we developed the school, we were designing for the students who are at Washington Middle School, largely Latinx students from poverty. And we did a lot of really deep ethnographic work, a lot of listening to both the students, alumni, parents. The 7-Eleven at the intersection of Melrose and Olive, I walked down there. I talked to them, introduced myself, talked to them when I got to Washington. And so we did all this deep listening. And what we realized is school was being done to these kids, that they didn't see themselves in what was happening. And so there wasn't any engagement, and not to the fault of any teacher on campus. It was to the fault of No Child Left Behind and the system, and how we, as a country, were punishing, schools for different things. And so we decided when we started planning VIDA, even before VIDA had a name, that the first thing we were going to try and tackle is engagement. That we wanted both the students and the adults to have a reason to get out of bed in the morning and to come and to try and to care and to listen. And so I think just that founding aspect of getting to sort of start over. And we have about 1,000 visitors a year come through the school for different reasons. And what we always tell them is, VIDA. So VIDA is an acronym. We came up with VIDA before we came up with Vista Innovation Design Academy, because the word VIDA in Spanish means life. And so we aspire for this to be more about the lives of the children and the adults in the building than just school or than just work. And so getting the chance to start over, even with the same adults in the same building, with the same kids matriculating through originally, we had the chance to just change the philosophy and change the opportunity. After our first year, we took some of the kids from Washington who are the hardest kids in 6th and 7th grade, and they're 8th graders at VIDA. And we asked them about their experiences, and we call them turnaround kids. Really tough kids with tough life circumstances who made huge turnarounds in a short amount of time. And one of the students said, one of the things that's different from Washington to VIDA, remember, these are the same teachers, is that now our teachers care about us. What, as a 13-year-old boy, what he translated as care was opportunity and experiences. The people didn't love or care any more or less than before.
The care was always there.
It was always there, but the experiences that children feel in school, they translate that as how people are treating them. So I think that's a big thing.
Wow. So now VIDA's been here. This is its 10th year.
It's our 10th year. Do you know how old that makes me? I am 22 years old now.
You're aging backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Every day.
Well, all of these, 12 to 14-year-olds are keeping you young, right?
And losing my hair at the same time.
Yeah. So what has changed from those first days of excitement, anticipation, plans, thoughts, goals. 10 years later, are you where you thought the school would be? Or what's different?
The day we opened, we had no idea if it was going to work.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was a jump. It was a leap of faith. The families that originally came in, I always tell people they've always been our biggest cheerleaders, and they were there from the very first days. And it fills my heart with pride to see where we've come. So we have our big expo every year is like, someone else's traditional open house. We just do it differently. And at that event, we had a big 10-year timeline. And when preparing for this, we were looking through like, what classes do we offer in 2014 compared to today? And one of the things that people come to us for is we have such a wide variety of classes and different experiences and opportunities that we offer kids. And we get sort of like stuck in the privilege of we do all these rad things. And then looking back at what we offered our first year, like, we did not always offer that. So we have, right now, we have students working on an AI enabled robot. Her name is Chai. They're 3D printing parts for her. She's brilliant. She's an assistant. Like, we're doing rad things that aren't happening at other levels, especially like even the middle school level. Our drama program outshines a lot of high school programs in the county. And it's just absolutely state of the art what our team is able to do with kids who care.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, VIDA's a magnet school. It's a public school. You have to apply to get in. There's only so many spots.
Yep.
There's always a wait list.
Yep.
That's hard.
Yep.
Because I was very fortunate. My daughter was selected in the lottery to attend VIDA. It's a great school. And we have a lot of great schools in our district.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying anything bad about any other school.
Yep.
But, how can we as a community have every 7th grader feel engaged? I mean, what are some of the things that could be applied in other middle schools, maybe in our district or beyond, that you've learned at VIDA? And how can we love everybody, love them all up, like every 7th grader?
Yeah. Well, I think we're blessed with lots of great schools, and in Vista, we have a great schools of choice model.
Right.
So everyone's zoned for a school by their address. And if they don't like that school, then there's the magnet schools they can apply to. They can do transfers to other schools. So I just think we're in a time where we're blessed. Like, one of the things on tours that we talk to families about is when you and I grew up, we just went to whatever school was closest.
Right.
The day I was born, my parents knew, God willing, that I graduated from high school, that it would be Orange Glen High School.
Right.
And so we didn't have to think about those things, and we moved. So that's why I got shuttled around in elementary a little bit. But we have people, and we work really deeply with schools in Ethiopia, India, New Zealand, Korea, Japan, across the United States. We just had a school from Kansas City out yesterday, and everyone's trying to crack the same nut. And so it's this idea of engagement with kids. How do you restructure these very oftentimes rigid public structures? And it's a bureaucracy. Public education is a bureaucracy. And so one of the things that we push around a lot is, are these internal or external rules that we're trying to follow, or is there latitude to try and do something different? And so one of the things I think schools get caught up in, and I'm not saying our local schools, I'm talking like a nationally and internationally level, is there's a lot of things we're supposed to say. There's a lot of things we're supposed to talk about. And oftentimes as school leaders, as long as you say the thing, then you get a pass. You're okay. You don't have to point to so we're supposed to say creativity. We're supposed to say equity. We're supposed to say innovation. We're supposed to say future ready. And as long as people say that out loud, then you're good. But it's a struggle for people to actually point to, what do those things look like in your school? What do they mean? What's the definition? How are kids presenting with that? And what are they doing around it? And so one of the things that we, that I give critical feedback to, people from all over North America, and we give it to ourselves, is, do we know what creativity means? Do we have a working definition for that? Do we see how it shows up? Is there an expectation for that on campus? What does innovation education actually mean? Is that experimenting on kids? Is that, what is that? Future ready. Like, so you want to be future ready? Fantastic. All kids need to be ready for the future. But what are you pointing towards?
Right. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we work a lot on that. We hold ourselves accountable for that. We appreciate pushback on that, and we give the push also.
That's great. I'm glad to know that those conversations are happening and that there's this kind of global view of it. But I do want to say, I have a lot of mom friends, and the role that I'm in, people ask me questions, and then, they're like, oh, which middle school should I do? And it's like, well, your kid can have a great experience at whatever school they go to. They just have to figure out what's their thing. If you want to be in band, you should go to Roosevelt, right? Or, if you have different things that you're into.
And Madison too.
Madison has band now. Great. Yeah. I didn't know they had a band. So there you go.
Have great programs.
That's great. So I know that there's, I know less about Madison than I do Roosevelt because we lived by there. But yeah, so there's different programs that every school has. So you just have to kind of figure out what's the best fit for your kid.
What we try and communicate a lot is sometimes people get stuck in this thing, and especially the 8th grade parents, around December, January, because high school is coming up.
And so I was just there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And so I get a lot of questions. People stop in the parking lot. They're like, hey, what is the best high school? You know what's going on. What's the best high school? Where should I be going? And 5th grade parents have these same conversations with their principals and with their neighbors. And so what I always talk about is that there is no best school. Like, we need to get over this black and white winners, losers type thing.
Sure.
There is no best school. There may be a better fit for each child based on programs and offerings and even sometimes carpet. Like, there's all the things that go into it. And so each school, there's something to celebrate and be excited about. And, we don't offer some things for kids, and that's fantastic because there are places that do.
Right.
And I think too, if I can add on a little bit, is when we opened, so 10 years ago, we tried, or maybe it was me as the head of it, or the face of it, not the head of it, tried to be everything to everyone. And when you do that, you fail all over the place. And so that type of realization helped us get really tight on what we do, and we do it really well, and what we don't do, and we're not even going to try. And so,
yeah. Well, and that's, a lot of people listening to this episode are in the business world. And I think that's a good advice for anyone leading an organization of any kind is really just honing in on what are you about? What do you do well? What should you keep doing well? And what do you need to say no to? I know, I've been in this role now 5 years. My first 18 months at this chamber was just trying to figure out how to manage all the things I said yes to. And because I wanted to figure it out, I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to make sure that I was building relationships with people. And originally I thought, oh, that's, partnering with someone means saying yes, but sometimes it means saying no. So you can focus on something that's more important that really connects back to your mission. And so for you and for VIDA, it's getting back to like, what's the core here? What are we really trying to do? And if we do this over here, XYZ, maybe those 3 people are happy, but then it pulls our focus from what really matters. Yeah. So I think that's good advice, not just in the education space, but for the business folks that are listening, or for just any random person who's ever had to decide whether or not to do something. I think it's important.
Well, we offer 27 electives.
That's a lot.
That's an insane number for a middle school.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we had to let go was because Washington had band. And when VIDA started, we had band. And there were 18 kids who chose that and not the other 27 type options. And so we know that places like Madison and Roosevelt, we can't compete with them.
Right.
And they have those beautiful band programs. They're so high quality. And that's where a kid that wants to be in band should go.
Right.
Right. And so, it doesn't mean we don't have music. We have a full-time music teacher doing incredibly rad things with kids. It just looks different.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you, what is your favorite thing about your job?
Oh, hands down, the young people. Absolutely. If there were no adults and no social media in the world, my life would be perfect.
Yeah. When you speak about social media, I saw that the district has a new policy about phones that's going to be implemented next year.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
What do you think about it?
I wish we'd already had it.
Yeah. It's It is a growing trend across the US. Um, Kids were already in a bad space with phones early on.
Yeah.
Pandemic obviously made everything worse. And when we had some sessions with parents, we did like a big Zoom, like social media, cell phone thing. And then we had some intimate, smaller sessions where kids weren't invited because we wanted to talk about like really real things with parents.
Scary things.
Yeah. Were you there?
Yes.
Oh, man. But it's good, right?
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I appreciate like having community, being able to be honest and like, so the biggest struggle we face is with the phone thing. And this isn't going to go away just with a cell phone, more strict limitations, is our biggest struggle with phones is parents not knowing what kids are doing with it. Parents not going into, allowing them to have social media accounts, but not knowing who they're messaging and what they're talking about and what they're following and what they're looking at. That may or may not happen a little bit at school. That's happening in their bedrooms.
Yeah.
That's happening at the park. It's happening after soccer practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope there's this larger push. The school district can do what the school district can do, but parents have got to make sure that they're looking, watching. We have handed supercomputers with access to very adult things to very young children with no developed frontal cortex. And it's bad.
Yeah.
But while I'm all for the limitation of phones and the direction of the district, I'm 100% for it. But I don't want parents to have a sigh of relief and think that their job's over.
Right. No, that's true. Okay. So I want to say two quick things about this, and then, because we could talk about this all day. We could talk about like phones and social media. So two things. One, I like the policy. One, I am one of the stricter moms who had a phone for my kiddo that doesn't have access to the internet.
Is it like Bark or?
It's a Gab phone. Okay. And so it's a phone that has texting, calling, group texting, photos. You can listen to music. That's it. Right. You can get the remind text, all of that. But so I like that because I wanted to keep my kid from having my child has an Instagram account. It's on my phone. Right? You can look at Instagram on my phone or on your iPad when you're at home and we're in the family room. Yep. Right. So, anyways, I'm more strict, but everybody else gets their phone. And so I'm the worst mom of all time, which is fine. I will be the worst mom of all time and wear that. Girl. I will wave that flag proudly. Mm-hmm. And so, but I also know that a lot of kids just have accounts on their friend's phone. Yep. They can have, an account on there, and I'm not dumb enough to think that couldn't happen. Right. So anyway, so that's the first thing is, so, there's an issue where if you're strict and you don't let your kid have access to that, then they're left out of something, right? Of this greater thing that's happening that they're not part of, or then they are pushed to make choices and have an account on a friend's phone or whatever. So there's that.
And that happens all the time.
And that happens. I mean, I'm sure everybody has stuff on other people's. The parents who aren't checking, that kid has everybody's thing on their phone. And then, the other thing is just the isolation of, when you pull up for pickup and you see a sea of kids and every single one of them is sitting, looking at their phone and not talking to the people around them. Not everybody's doing that. There's a mix. It's a mix.
Yeah, because we have kids, they're playing ball, they're chasing each other.
But I'm saying like not necessarily at VIDA, but I've seen.
Yeah, and we do definitely. They're in their phones. Yeah.
So it's it's just about the connection time. So okay, moving on from that, I want to ask you.
Can make a plug for a book.
Yes.
If any parents out there are concerned about this, a new book just came out called Anxious Generation.
Oh yeah,
it needs to be read.
Okay, so we talked about all the good parts about your job, the kids. Yeah. So, what is the hardest part? What's the hardest thing?
I would say the hardest part of the job is social media. So being a principal in the modern era means that social media, both with kids, with adults, with fake accounts, with people hiding behind anonymous posts,
it's a lot.
It is. And
it's kind of unnecessary. Like we don't need all that drama.
Oh, it's absolutely unnecessary. I even get confused sometimes because I'll hear people ask a question like about the school, like on social media. I'm like, well, you're a parent. Why don't you just, I wave at you every single morning. So it's an interesting interaction. And I find that people are always much nicer in person.
Well, it's so easy to be rude when there's no face or name attached to the other end of it. And that bugs me so badly. It's like you wouldn't walk up to someone and say these things.
Yeah.
Why are you saying it online?
I think in general, like it's probably in the business world and education, like even kids, we're all doing our best.
Yes.
Right? Like we're not perfect. And I'm abundantly, overtly try to be out there that we are not perfect.
Yeah.
But we care a lot and we try, and like we have bad days, kids have bad days, parents have bad days. And so the social media sort of like ramps and elevates that.
I just think I want to get back to a place where we all give each other the benefit of the doubt first. Whenever when something happens or there's something going on, like just assume the best in people until they show you otherwise. Don't assume the worst in people until they show you, you know what I mean? So, and I feel like social media has kind of exacerbated that thing.
You know what an analogy for social media is with me?
What?
When people unnecessarily honk their horns.
I don't honk. I'm not a honker.
I'm not a honker either.
Don't get it.
It really bugs me though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Side note. Don't honk at me.
Don't honk. And it's hard to know if it's a happy honk or a mean honk.
I love happy honks, but it confuses me because there's only one tone in the honk.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to know.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. It's hard to discern the tone of email and honks.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, that's today's insightful.
That's hard.
Diamond.
That's going to be our Instagram reel for this episode. Okay. All right. So you spend a ton of time with middle schoolers.
Yes.
What do you want people to know about middle schoolers? I feel like they're misunderstood. What do you want people to know about them? That if adults could listen to you, and what would you say?
That they're the most incredible young people on the planet. Like this age span, regardless of where they are, what they do, they're so insightful. They're so curious. They want to be heard and understood so badly. They want to be independent and left alone, yet held and taken care of. They're the absolute dichotomy of every understanding that makes sense as adults. And every time someone's like, oh, I can't believe, like, yep, what a beautiful little middle schooler, right?
Yeah.
Like that is exactly what they should have done.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Like we're frustrated, but come on.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. In addition to serving as the principal at VIDA, you've taken on some additional roles at the district, or a role, maybe?
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what is that? What are you doing?
So for years, I've been helping out the district doing different, some design work and some culture work with principals. So it was just to formalize a little bit more this year. It's called the Director of School Transformation. So I'm split between VIDA and doing district work, helping lead some initiatives. And it's great. You get to connect, do a lot with principals, understanding organizational culture and working towards different goals and looking at their schools and what we do.
And you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It pushes my brain in a different way than I have for the last 10 years.
Because you said you've been in the district. You've been here
23 years.
23 years. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, that's great that you get to stretch your creative muscles in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it prepares me until I become a flight attendant.
To be a flight attendant?
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Oh, yeah. That's my next career goal.
Oh.
Specifically, I hope you're listening, Southwest Airlines.
Oh, I interviewed with them, but they didn't hire me when I was like 23. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I took that job.
Okay.
But I didn't take the job. I declined it because I was going to be stationed out of Oakland.
Oh.
Which, as a kid from northern San Diego, like that didn't sound fun.
Okay.
Yeah. But I want to be a flight attendant. I want to do the funny jokes.
Yeah.
I want to make the cool hand gestures.
You would be so good at it.
And I want to take care of people.
At the chamber, we see a space where we can help businesses connect with education. And with the ultimate goal, really, of talent attraction, right? Like the chamber, that's one of the reasons why we connect so closely with the school district, and is because we're here to serve businesses, and that's about talent attraction, and it's about having a great community. And so what are some ways that maybe the business community can engage with VIDA specifically, or with the district? What are some ways that we could do better in that way?
I think there's a lot of things. I think the biggest thing that's on my mind is when most teachers, not all of them, and this means principals too, and assistant principals, the whole chain of command, we were good at school. So we went to school so that we could work in school. And so therefore, when we talk about being future ready and the changing face of the economy and what the needs of the future are, we're a little insulated from all that in the world. And so I think one of the greatest gifts is totally free and just sharing expertise, sharing insights, sharing trends, and having those discussions, providing externships for teachers so that teachers can go and spend a week outside the classroom, but in industry, seeing like, oh, this is what they mean when. And I think when we have a better understanding of that, because we're supposed to be preparing the future, yet we don't have those insights.
Right.
And so this is why we've worked really hard with Verizon and Qualcomm and OtterBox and local entrepreneurs and others to help build our acronym around what are the needs of the future. And so I think, the more open the business world is to that locally, the better our kids will be off.
Okay. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you just really feel like you need to say or share? Anything about, could be about anything that you have a mic, use it. What do you want to say? I
have a mic, which is frightening. Usually if I have a mic, there's a leash attached to it to keep me from going off the rails. No, I appreciate being here. I love Vista. I don't live in Vista, but I love Vista. And so in social network theory, I'm what you would call a stayer. Find a place and I don't leave. Mm-hmm. My best friend has this phrase that he uses all the time. Do the work that you want with the people that you love for as long as it makes sense. And so I love Vista. I love being in Vista for as long as it makes sense. So I love the people. I love the work we do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I have a couple of rapid fire questions I ask every guest. So, and I see you came prepared.
I did. I did my homework. I'm so excited.
Good job. So tell me about a book everyone should read.
Thank You for Being Late by Thomas Friedman.
Okay. Do you want to say anything about it?
You need to read it.
Just read it.
Yep.
Is it fiction? Is it nonfiction?
Oh, I don't read fiction.
Okay.
Well, that's a lie. I was an English major for 2 years.
Okay.
And so I do read one classic novel every summer on vacation.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm 100% nonfiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and I know in your newsletter that goes out every week, you always have a list of whatever you're reading at that time.
Always sure. And you know what I love about that?
What?
Is, and it's usually moms. I don't think a dad's ever said this, but they'll be like, hey, I picked up that, XYZ, and they'll have conversations.
Yeah.
Or it's like informal book club.
I love it.
It's fantastic.
Well, I always feel super cool whenever it comes out and I've already read that book and I'm like, yeah.
Nailed it.
I already read it. Yeah. So we can talk about this. Okay. So tell me a song you always have to turn up. What's your jam?
Little Miss Magic by Jimmy Buffett.
Okay. It's a good one.
Oh.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Dad of Daughters.
Yeah.
Context.
Yeah. Of course. Okay. What is something that inspires you?
Kids, their tenacity, their creativity, their hope, their wide-eyedness.
Resiliency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kids.
We have a lot of kids who've been through a lot of things that a lot of adults I know have never been through.
Yeah.
And they show up and they smile, they do their thing, and they're nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Last question. Tell me a Vista business that deserves a shout out and why.
Big Jim's 395.
Okay.
Veteran owned, best sandwiches in the city.
What's your go-to there?
I get the turkey on the squaw. I get no tomatoes, extra mayo, extra dressing.
I'm all about the tuna melt there.
I'm not a fan of tuna. And then when you heat it up, that just seems like it's a bad
I know you either
combo.
love it or you don't.
Yeah.
I'm in. It's all cheesy and toasty.
I really like everything else about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can agree to disagree on
Awesome.
the tuna melt. Okay. Thank you so much, Eric, for being here.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you, Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you to our guest, Dr. Eric Chagala, VIDA Principal, and thank you for listening to Velocity. If you like what you heard, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and tell a friend. Help us move Vista forward with velocity. The Vista Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization that serves as a catalyst for business growth. Visit us online at vistachamber.org.